His uncle died rich, but left him something even stranger: alien wives. Jake Martinez stared at the pile of overdue bills cluttering his cramped studio apartment. His freelance graphic design business was crumbling, and his latest client had just rejected his proposal with a particularly harsh email. The ringing phone felt like another harbinger of bad news. "Is this Jake Martinez?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Yeah, that's me," Jake replied, expecting another debt collector. "Mr. Martinez, this is attorney Sarah Chen from Chen and Associates. I'm calling about your great-uncle Victor's estate." Jake nearly dropped the phone. Uncle Victor, his grandfather's brother, was practically a stranger. Jake had met him maybe 3 times at family reunions, where Victor would ramble about quantum physics before disappearing early. "I'm sorry, but there must be some mistake. I barely knew my uncle." "There's no mistake, Mr. Martinez. Your uncle passed away last month, and according to his will, you are his sole heir. He's left you his entire estate, valued at approximately $47 million. The apartment spun around Jake. $47 million? Uncle Victor lived like a recluse in some remote house. How could he possibly have that kind of money? "Mr. Martinez, I know this is shocking. Your uncle made his fortune through technology patents and investments. However, there are specific conditions to this inheritance that we must discuss in person. Can you come to my office tomorrow?" Jake agreed immediately, his mind reeling. The next morning, Jake sat in an elegant downtown law office, signing papers that seemed too surreal to be real. Attorney Chen explained the conditions with careful precision. Your uncle was very specific about these requirements. First, you must live in his house for at least 6 months to receive the full inheritance. Second, there are certain areas of the basement that you cannot access or modify. Third, you cannot sell the property during this period. Jake nodded eagerly. These seemed like minor restrictions for $47 million. He had nothing keeping him in the city anyway. 3 days later, Jake drove up a winding mountain road toward his new life. When Uncle Victor's house came into view, his breath caught. This wasn't just a house, it was an architectural marvel. The modern structure seemed to blend seamlessly with the mountainside, its clean lines and expansive windows catching the afternoon sunlight. Using the keys attorney Chen had provided, Jake stepped inside. The house was extraordinary. Lights activated automatically as he moved through rooms. The kitchen contained appliances he'd never seen before. Digital displays showed weather patterns and news feeds integrated into the walls themselves. As Jake explored the main floor, he noticed unusual symbols carved into doorframes and walls, markings in no language he recognized. Some rooms contained mysterious equipment with softly blinking lights and gentle humming sounds. In Uncle Victor's study, Jake discovered an extensive library focused on astrophysics, quantum mechanics, and subjects far beyond his understanding. Journals filled with Victor's handwriting contained technical terminology mixed with those same strange symbols. That first night, Jake prepared dinner using Victor's advanced kitchen equipment. The meal turned out better than anything he'd ever cooked, probably thanks to the sophisticated appliances. As he ate, he browsed through his uncle's papers, trying to piece together what kind of work Victor had been doing. From what Jake could determine, Uncle Victor had been some kind of scientist or inventor. There were patents for various technologies, correspondence with government agencies and research institutions. But there were also stranger documents, letters mentioning subjects, visitors, and protocols. Around midnight, Jake heard sounds from somewhere below the house. Machinery running, a low, rhythmic humming that seemed to pulse with life. He remembered the attorney's warning about the basement areas he wasn't allowed to enter, but his curiosity was growing stronger with each passing hour. Jake spent the following days adapting to his uncle's house while trying to continue his graphic design work. But concentration proved difficult with all the mysterious technology surrounding him. The house seemed to operate independently, temperature always perfect, security system incredibly advanced, cameras monitoring every corner of the property. He found more of Uncle Victor's journals and began reading them more carefully. Victor wrote about his research and his responsibility, but never explained exactly what he was studying. There were references to visitors from distant places, the agreement, and maintaining the protocol. It all sounded like elaborate science fiction. The basement sounds continued every night, sometimes quiet humming, other times machinery starting up and shutting down. Jake's curiosity was becoming unbearable, but he feared breaking the conditions. of his inheritance. After 2 weeks in the house, Jake began feeling less alone. At first, he attributed this to growing comfortable with his surroundings, but then he started noticing other things. Sometimes he felt watched, even when completely alone. Food in the refrigerator seemed to disappear faster than he was consuming it. Twice he could have sworn he heard voices, soft, musical voices that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Jake began suspecting that Uncle Victor's house held secrets far greater than advanced technology. The $47 million inheritance was starting to feel less like a gift and more like payment for something he didn't yet understand. 3 weeks after moving in, Jake made a discovery that changed everything. While cleaning out Victor's desk, he found a hidden compartment containing 3 unusual keys. They were made of some strange metal that felt warm to the touch and seemed to glow faintly in dim light. Jake stared at the keys for a long time. He knew he wasn't supposed to access the basement rooms, but his curiosity was overwhelming. What if there was something dangerous down there? What if Victor had left him these keys for a reason? That evening, Jake made his decision. Armed with a flashlight and the mysterious keys, he headed to the basement door he'd avoided for weeks. His hands shook as he tried the first key, no luck. The second key didn't work either. But when he tried the third key, he heard a soft click, and the door opened. The basement was much larger than Jake had expected. The main area looked relatively normal, but several doors led to other rooms. Jake could hear the humming sound much more clearly now. It was coming from somewhere deeper underground. Following the sound, Jake found another locked door that opened with the second key. Behind it lay a narrow hallway leading deeper underground. The walls were lined with more equipment, and Jake noticed the air felt different here, cleaner somehow, and slightly cool. At the hallway's end stood a final door, much larger and more impressive than the others. It looked like it belonged on a spacecraft rather than in a basement. Strange lights blinked around the door frame, and Jake could feel slight vibrations coming from whatever lay beyond. The third key opened this door, and Jake stepped into a room that took his breath away. It was enormous, much bigger than should have been possible under the house. The ceiling soared high above, and the walls were covered with screens and control panels. In the room's center stood 2 large cylindrical containers, each about the size of a phone booth. Jake approached them carefully. They were made of some kind of transparent material and filled with glowing blue liquid. What made Jake's heart nearly stop was what he could see floating inside each container. There were people in there too. People suspended in the luminous blue liquid, appearing to be in peaceful sleep. One had long silver hair, the other golden hair. Both looked young and serene, as if they were simply taking a nap. Jake ran back upstairs, his mind racing. Jake spent the next hour pacing around the house, trying to make sense of what he'd witnessed. Were those people alive? Dead? Who were they? And why were they in Uncle Victor's basement? Finally, Jake forced himself to return downstairs. He had to understand what was happening. This time, he spent more time examining the room carefully. He found Uncle Victor's detailed journals on a desk near the containers, journals that were different from the others, more recent and much more specific. Reading through them, Jake learned an impossible truth. The 2 people in the containers weren't from Earth. According to Victor's notes, they were visitors from another world, a planet in a distant galaxy. They had come to Earth 20 years ago as part of an agreement between their people and certain humans. The journals explained that these visitors had volunteered for a special program. They wanted to learn about human life and culture by living among humans, but their biology was different from humans, and they needed special equipment to survive on Earth for extended periods. The containers weren't prisons, they were life support systems that kept the visitors healthy while they were in a kind of suspended animation. Uncle Victor had been their guardian and protector for decades, part of a secret group of humans who worked with these visitors, helping them study Earth while keeping their existence hidden from the general public. But now Victor was gone. And according to his notes, Jake was supposed to take over this responsibility. The most shocking part was what Victor had written about Jake himself. This wasn't a random inheritance. The visitors had specifically chosen Jake to be their new guardian, based on information they had gathered about him over the years. They had been watching him, learning about his personality and character, and they had decided he was the right person to help them complete their mission on Earth. Jake sat heavily in Victor's chair, trying to process this information. According to the journals, the visitors would wake up soon. The suspended animation cycle was ending, and they would need Jake's help to adjust to their new situation. Victor had written detailed instructions about how to care for them and how to help them blend into human society. But the most incredible part was still to come. Jake read that, according to the visitors' customs and the agreement made 20 years ago, they were supposed to form a family unit with their human guardian. In their culture, this was how they learned about human relationships and emotions. They weren't just going to be Jake's responsibility, they were going to be his companions, his partners in this incredible secret mission. Jake looked at the peaceful faces in the containers and realized his simple life was about to become extraordinarily complicated. The $47 million suddenly seemed like the least important part of his inheritance. On the third morning after his discovery, Jake was eating breakfast when he heard a sound he'd never heard before, a soft musical tone like a gentle alarm coming from the basement. His heart started racing. This was it. Jake rushed downstairs to the secret room. The containers had changed. The blue liquid was glowing brighter, and he could see movement inside. Both figures were stirring, as if waking from a long sleep. Jake watched in amazement as the liquid began draining from the containers. Within minutes, the containers opened with a soft hissing sound. Jake stepped back, not knowing what to expect. The two figures inside took their first breaths and slowly opened their eyes. The woman with silver hair opened her eyes first. They were unlike any eyes Jake had ever seen. They seemed to shift color from blue to green to gold depending on how the light struck them. She looked directly at Jake, and he felt as though she could see straight into his soul. "You must be Jake," she said, her voice musical and gentle. "I am Zara." Jake's mouth fell open. She spoke perfect English, but there was something magical about the way she sounded, like every word was a carefully crafted melody. The second woman, the one with golden hair, sat up more slowly. Her eyes had the same color-shifting quality, but her smile was warmer and more welcoming. "And I am Nova," she said. "We have been waiting to meet you. You know who I am?" Jake stammered. Zara stepped out of her container gracefully, moving like she was walking on air. "We have been dreaming of you for many weeks. Even in our suspended state, we could sense your presence in the house. Your uncle told us much about you before he passed." Nova stood as well, and Jake noticed they were both wearing simple white garments that seemed to be made of some unusual material. They moved with otherworldly grace, like dancers who had trained their entire lives. "You must have many questions," Nova said kindly, "and we understand this must be overwhelming for you." Jake nodded, still too shocked to form complete sentences. These beings looked almost human, but there was something clearly different about them. Besides their unusual eyes, their skin seemed to have a slight luminescence, and when they moved, it was with perfect balance and coordination. "Please sit down," Zara said, gesturing to a chair near Victor's desk. "We need to explain many things to you." Jake sat down gratefully, since his legs felt weak. Zara and Nova sat across from him, and he noticed they seemed to communicate with each other through subtle glances and expressions, as if they could read each other's thoughts. "We come from a world very far from here," Nova began. "Our people have been observing Earth for many generations, learning about humans from a distance. 20 years ago, our leaders decided it was time to make contact, but very carefully and secretly. Your uncle was one of the humans chosen to help with this contact," Zara continued. "He was a good man who understood the importance of keeping our existence secret while we learned about your world." Jake found his voice. "But why me? I'm nobody special. I can barely pay my bills." Nova smiled warmly. "That is exactly why you are special, Jake. You are a regular human living a regular human life. We did not come here to study your leaders or your scientists. We came to understand ordinary human emotions, relationships, and daily life. Our mission was to live among humans and experience what you call love, friendship, and family," Zara explained. "But our biology is different from yours. We cannot survive on Earth for long periods without the special equipment your uncle maintained for us." Jake was starting to understand, but it was still overwhelming. "So you've been asleep down here for 20 years? "Not exactly asleep," Nova said. "We experience a kind of dreaming state where we can still learn and observe. We have been aware of everything happening in the house. We watched your uncle work, and we have been watching you since you arrived. We know about your struggles with money, your failed relationships, your dreams of being a successful artist," Zara added gently. "We have seen your kindness when you thought no one was watching. We have observed your character, Jake felt embarrassed that they had been watching him without his knowledge, but also curious. "What exactly do you need from me?" The two women looked at each other, and Jake sensed they were having one of their silent conversations. Finally, Nova spoke. "In our culture, learning about love and family requires experiencing it directly. Your uncle was our teacher and protector, but he was much older and saw us more as his responsibility than his family. We need someone who can be our partner in this experience." "Partner?" Jake asked, his voice cracking slightly. "We know this is strange by human standards," Zara said carefully, "but in our world, it is common for multiple people to form family bonds together. We are not asking you to change who you are. We are asking you to let us learn what human love feels like by sharing it with you." Jake sat quietly for a long moment, trying to process everything these beautiful, otherworldly women were asking him to be part of some kind of relationship that would help them complete their mission to understand humanity. "What if I'm not good at this?" Jake asked. "What if I mess it up?" Nova reached over and gently touched his hand. Her skin was warm and soft, but there was a slight tingling sensation, like a mild electric current. "Jake, we have been observing humans for 20 years. We know that love is not about being perfect. It is about caring for each other, learning together, and growing together. That is exactly what we want to experience, and we will help you too," Zara added. "We have knowledge and abilities that can help you achieve your dreams. This arrangement benefits all of us." Jake looked at both women and realized his life had just taken the most incredible turn imaginable. He was being offered a chance to be part of something amazing, a secret mission that could change the future of two worlds. And somehow, these extraordinary beings had chosen him, ordinary Jake Martinez, to be their guide into the mysteries of human love and life. Over the following months, Jake's life transformed completely. With Zara's help understanding Victor's technology patents, he was able to make improvements that attracted major companies. His graphic design business suddenly flourished as he created campaigns for technologies he barely understood weeks before. Nova helped him in different ways, encouraging him to be more open about his feelings and to trust people more. Under her guidance, Jake reached out to old friends and began building better relationships with clients. But the most surprising change was how Jake felt about both women. At first, he had been overwhelmed by the strangeness of the situation. Now he was starting to genuinely care for them as individuals. Zara's quiet intelligence and problem-solving skills impressed him daily. Nova's warmth and emotional insight helped him understand himself better. The three of them developed routines and inside jokes. Zara would make breakfast using ingredients Jake had never heard of, but that tasted amazing. Nova would choose their evening entertainment, always picking stories that would help her understand human relationships. Jake handled all the practical matters of living in human society. One evening, about 6 months after their awakening, Jake realized something that surprised him. He was happy, truly happy for the first time in years. He looked forward to coming home every day, enjoyed their dinner conversations, and cherished the quiet evenings when they all worked on separate projects but stayed in the same room. When government agents eventually arrived, asking questions about Victor's work, Jake discovered that the secret was bigger than he'd imagined. The agents weren't there to arrest them or break up their family, they were there to offer Jake a job, continuing Victor's work as a liaison between humans and alien visitors. "We need someone who understands both human and alien perspectives," Agent Collins explained. "Based on what we've observed, you three work very well together." Years later, Jake stood in the office of the Victor Martinez Foundation for Interspecies Understanding, watching Zara work in their research lab and Nova meet with psychologists developing programs for human-alien cultural exchange. He thought about his old life, the tiny apartment, the unpaid bills, the loneliness. Uncle Victor hadn't just given him money. The real gift had been so much more: a purpose, a family, and a chance to be part of something bigger than himself. That evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Zara took his hand. "Do you ever regret inheriting your uncle's responsibilities?" Jake looked at both women, Zara with her silver hair gleaming in the sunlight, Nova with her golden hair flowing in the evening breeze, and smiled. "Never," he said. "This inheritance gave me everything I never knew I wanted. It gave me both of you, and it gave me a chance to help change the world." Nova squeezed his other hand. "And someday, When humans and aliens live together openly, our children will be the bridge between both worlds. Jake realized that his greatest inheritance wasn't the money or the house or even the advanced technology. It was love, a love that transcended worlds and species, proving that the universe was far more wonderful and connected than he had ever imagined.